Argentine Revolution was the name given by its leaders to a military coup d'etat which overthrew the government of Argentina in June 1966, which began a period of military dictatorship by a junta from then until 1973. The Revolution Argentina and the authoritarian bureaucratic state. The June 1966 coup established General Juan Carlos Omarña as de facto president, supported by several leaders of the General Confederation of Labor, including the General Secretary Augusto Vandor. This was followed by a series of military-appointed presidents and the implementation of neoliberal economic policies, supported by multinational companies, employers' federations, part of the more or less corrupt workers' movement, and the press. While preceding military coups were aimed at establishing temporary transitional juntas, the Revolution Argentina headed by Omarña aimed at establishing a new political and social order, opposed both to liberal democracy and to communism, which would give the armed forces of Argentina a leading political and economic role. Political scientist Guillermo O'Donnell named this type of regime authoritarian bureaucratic state, in reference to the Revolution Argentina, the 1964–1985 Brazilian military regime, Augusto Pinochet's regime. Omarña's rule. Omarña implemented corporatist policies, experimenting in particular in Córdoba under the governance of Carlos Caballero. The new Minister of Economy, Adalbert Krieghoff Vassner, decreed a wage freeze and a 40% devaluation, which strongly affected the state of the Argentinian economy, in particular the agricultural sector, and favored foreign capital. Vassner suspended collective labor conventions, reformed the hydrocarbons law, which had established a partial monopoly of the Yacimientos Petrolíferos Fiscales state firm, and passed a law facilitating the eviction of tenants over their non-payment of domestic rent. Finally, the right to strike was suspended and several other laws passed reversing previous progressive labor legislation. The workers' movement divided itself between Banderistas, who supported a Peronism without Perón line and advocated negotiation with the junta, alongside participationists, headed by José Alonso, and Peronists, who formed the General Confederation of Labor of the Argentines in 1968 and were opposed to any kind of participation with the military junta. Perón himself, from his exile in Francois Spain, maintained a cautious and ambiguous line of opposition to the regime, rejecting both endorsement and open confrontation. Cultural and education policies. Omarña ended university autonomy, which had been achieved by the university reform of 1918. He was responsible for the July 1966 La Noche de los Bastones Largos, where university autonomy was violated, in which he ordered police to invade the Faculty of Sciences of the University of Buenos Aires. They beat up and arrested students and professors. The university repression led to the exile of 301 university professors, among whom were Manuel Sadowski, Tulio Halprindongi, Sergio Bagu and Rizieri Frondizi. Omarña also ordered repression on all forms of immoralism, prescribing miniskirts, long hair for young men, and all avant-garde artistic movements. This moral campaign alienated the middle classes, who were massively present in universities. Change of direction of the armed forces. Towards the end of May 1968, General Julio Alzogaray dissented from Omarña, and rumors spread about a possible coup d'état, with Alzogaray leading the opposition to Omarña. At the end of the month, Omarña dismissed the leaders of the armed forces. Alejandro Lainez replaced Julio Alzogaray, Pedro Navi replaced Benigno Varela, and Jorge Martínez Zuviria replaced Adolfo Álvarez. Increasing protests. On 19 September 1968, two important events affected revolutionary Peronism. John William Cook, former personal delegate of Perón, an ideologist of the Peronist left and friend of Fidel Castro, died from natural causes. On the same day, a group of 13 men and 1 woman who aimed at establishing a foco in Tucumán province, in order to head the resistance against the junta, was captured. Among them was Enver El Cadre, then a leader of the Peronist youth. In 1969, the CGT de los Argentinos headed protest movements, in particular the Cordobas O, as well as other movements in Tucumán, Santa Fe and Rosario. While Perón managed a reconciliation with Augusto Vandor, he followed, in particular through the voice of his delegate Jorge Palladino, a cautious line of opposition to the military junta, criticizing with moderation the neoliberal policies of the junta but waiting for discontent inside the government. Thus, Onania had an interview with 46 CGT delegates, among them Vandor, who agreed on participationism with the military junta, thus uniting themselves with the Nueva Corriente opinion headed by José Alonso and Rogelio Coria. In December 1969, more than 20 priests, members of the Movement of Priests for the Third World, marched on the Casa Rosada to present to Onania a petition pleading him to abandon the eradication plan of Villas Miserias. The same year, the MSTM issued a declaration supporting socialist revolutionary movements, which lead the Catholic hierarchy, by the voice of Juan Carlos Aramburu, coadjutor Archbishop of Buenos Aires, to prescribe priests from making political or social declarations. Various armed actions, headed by the Fuerzas Armadas de Liberación, composed by former members of the Revolutionary Communist Party, occurred in April 1969, leading to several arrests among FAL members. These were the first left-wing urban guerrilla actions in Argentina. Beside these isolated actions, the Cordobas O Uprising of 1969, called forth by the CGT de los Argentinos, and its Cordobese leader, Agustín Tosco, prompted demonstrations in the entire country. The same year, the People's Revolutionary Army was formed as the military branch of the Trotskyist Workers' Revolutionary Party, leading an armed struggle against the dictatorship. Livingston's rule, faced with increasing opposition, in particular following the Cordobas O, General Onania was forced to resign by the military junta, composed of the chiefs of the army, the navy and the air force. He was replaced by General Roberto Marcelo Livingston, who, far from calling free elections, decided to deepen the Revolución Argentina. Livingston expressed the nationalist developmentist sector of the armed forces, and was supported by the most intransigent military elements. He named the radical economist Aldo Ferrer as Minister of Economy. A coalition of political parties issued the statement known as La Hora del Pueblo, calling for free and democratic elections which would include the Justicialist Party. Under this pressure, Livingston was ousted by an internal coup headed by the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces and strong man of the Revolución Argentina, General Alejandro Agustín Lainez. Lainez's rule, the last of the military presidents de facto of this period, Alejandro Lainez, was appointed in March 1971. He was as unpopular as his predecessors. His administration started building infrastructure projects necessary for the development of the country, without responding to popular demands concerning social and economic policies. General Lainez tried to respond to the Hora del Pueblo declaration by calling elections but excluding Peronists from them. In the so-called Gran Acuerdo Nacional, he nominated Arturo More Rogers Minister of Interior, who enjoyed the support of the Hora del Pueblo coalition of parties, to supervise the coming elections. There had been no elections since 1966, and armed struggle groups came into existence, such as the Ejército Revolucionario del Pueblo, the Catholic nationalist Peronists Montoneros, or the Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias. In August 1972, an attempt by several revolutionary members to escape from prison, headed by Mario Roberto Santico, was followed by what became known as the Lou Massacre. Fernando Bacanavarra, Roberto Quieta, Enrique Gorria and Melo and Domingo Mena managed to complete their escape, but 19 others were recaptured. 16 of them, members of the Montoneros, the FAR, and the ERP, were killed, and 3 managed to survive. On the same night of August 22, 1972, the junta approved Law 19,797, which prescribed any information concerning guerrilla organizations. The massacre led to demonstrations in various cities. Finally, Llanos lifted the proscription of the Justicialist Party, although he maintained it concerning Juan Perón by increasing the number of years of residency required of presidential candidates, thus excluding de facto Perón from the election since he had been in exile since the 1955 Revolución Libertadora. Henceforth, Perón decided to appoint as his candidate his personal secretary Héctor José Campora, a leftist Peronist. As representative of the Frejuli, composed of the Justicialist Party and minor, allied parties. The Frejuli's electoral slogan was Campora in government, Perón in power.